Good morning, beautiful people. It is Sarah Willoughby from sarahwilloughby.com. This morning, I have a beautiful guest with me, the beautiful Anna Thellmann. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
I am really looking forward to our conversation because I know we've spoken a little bit about the work that you do with people now, but I actually don't know about your fertility story. So we're going to share that. But before we dive into that, I'm just going to share your bio with people so that they get a feel for who you are, where you live in the world, and what you're doing. So Anna is an intimacy expert and relationship advisor operating from China, where her focus lies in helping women who are disappointed, disconnected, and detached in their relationships accelerate their intimate connection with their partner with her intimacy acceleration 3-step system. We will absolutely share more about that. She has helped hundreds of women shift from desperate and frustrated to delighted and confident by integrating coaching approaches, psychological theories, and NLP in all of her coaching. Additionally, she speaks, educates, and writes about sexuality, intimacy, relationships, and mindset. And in China, she has established herself as the go-to relationship coach and consultant for expats. And in Uganda, she volunteers as a relationship consultant in one of the biggest refugee camps. And that's a whole conversation in itself right there, that beautiful work that you are doing over in Uganda. So thank you for being here with me today. I would love to start by
Thank you
asking
for
you
having
to,
me.
oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I would love to start by asking you to share a little bit about your fertility journey, because that's how we initially connected. And I feel it's an important part of who you are and the work that you do now.
Thank you. Well, my fertility story, I think I would say it started in my 20s when I got divorced. I got divorced very young. But for me, it was clear even at that point that I want to have time. And then I said, when I'm 36, I will get pregnant. That's when I will start my family. And for me at the time, I think wasn't aware, or I didn't put that much pressure or thought in it to who will be the father, where will I be in my life. And it was just a given to me that, yeah, I'm going to get pregnant. I will have my children. I will have my family. And whatever the circumstances, I will be fine. And then I turned 36. And I said to my partner at the time, like, let's do this now. This is the time. This is what I was thinking about, planning out for years. And I told him at the beginning of our relationship that I was 31 at the time. I said, in 5 years' time, that's when I want to get pregnant. That's when I want to start the family. So we tried, and I got pregnant very quickly. And I was, I think, 6 or 7 weeks pregnant when I had a miscarriage. And at the time, I never thought about having a miscarriage or what does it mean? How does it look like? How will I feel? Because in my head, it was just a given. My siblings did it, my cousins did it, my friends did it. Everyone had children, and like, what? What's happening? So I remember when the bleeding started and the pain started, I was confused. I thought, is this normal? And talking to my doctor, talking to the nurses, going to hospital, they said, yeah, you had a miscarriage. And for me, my plan broke down, my world broke down. And I didn't know what to do. First, what I did is I I said to them, give me something for work because I don't want to go to work. I need to deal with this now. I want to take the time. Because to me, it was obvious I need some time for myself because this is now destroying my whole worldview. This is destroying my life. You can probably hear it on my voice. It's still something that comes up very strongly. And I took 2 weeks off work and I told them, look, I had a miscarriage. I want this time to deal with it. And I tried to find other women who had miscarriages. So I read a lot of articles. I went to forums where I could just read what other women experienced. because no one ever talked to me about a miscarriage. No
Mm.
one ever said ever I had a miscarriage. So this was something I had to do. And at the time, my partner, which got me a bit angry because he just did like, no, no, this is what
Mm.
happened. I was like, I'm in this alone. And I felt very lost. And I cried a lot. I thought about what does it mean for my body. But on the other hand, I also was very sure that, okay, we try again and it will happen. And I broke up with my partner. That's a different story. And a couple of months, a year later, I met a new guy. And we were very much in love and everything was great. And eventually we got to the point where I said, look, I had a miscarriage and I would like to have my own family. I would like to try. And he said, okay. And again, I got pregnant very quickly. And then I lost it again. And I was like, what's going on? I was confused. So the second miscarriage to me was like, what? I was in disbelief that how can this happen? And I didn't take the time to grieve because I was just confused. There wasn't much, I would say there wasn't much pain. It was just a lot of confusion. So what's going on? Why is this happening again? And I didn't take the time to grieve. I didn't take time off work. I didn't take time to process. I was just annoyed. So, this is weird. And we tried again. A couple of months later, I got pregnant again. So obviously, I thought, I'm very fertile, so this is working well. And then I had another miscarriage. And I was like, what's going on? Wow, why is this happening? What am I doing wrong?
Mm.
And I went to the hospital and they had a look if everything, if the fetus has come out completely and checked everything, and everything was fine. And the doctor asked me, said, oh, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you do this? Do you do that? So they tried to tell me that my lifestyle is the reason for that. My age is the reason for that. They tried to put ideas in my head. And I thought, really? So if I would be 10 years younger, this wouldn't have happened? Is that what you're telling me? And I started to feel shame for me, for my body. It was really confusing. And I got angry. I got angry at them because them telling me this, saying, you are at fault here. And I was like, I don't know if I'm at fault here. Really? Let's see. So we continued trying, and I fell pregnant again. And I remember this one particularly because I got so angry when I saw the pregnancy test and it was positive. I was just like, oh, fuck it. Sorry for that language. I was like, oh, I will miscarry this one as well. And I remember I I had some vodka at home, so I mixed myself a strong drink, got my cigarettes out, said, this is going down as well. So let's not bother. And I remember my partner came home and he said, what are you doing? He threw my drink away and he shouted at me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, what do you want? I will miscarry anyway. So what's the point? What is the point in looking after myself and taking care of myself, in trying to save this child in some way, because it would die anyway. So I was very, very angry. And a couple of days later, I miscarried again. And to me, that was like, yeah, this is it. It's not happening to me, for me. My body can't do this. And I remember that I didn't deal with the loss of the previous children that I had. And even saying it at the time that I have 4 children, it was something it took me weeks to actually say it, to even think it. But eventually, luckily, I talked to a doctor. I went to my GP, and we talked, and they said, talk about it. Just talk about it. Write it down. Whatever you want to do, just somehow let it out. And I remember cycling back, and I tried to get these words out. I have 4 children, and the tears just came flooding down, and the pain just overwhelmed me. But it was so good in hindsight that I did that I honored my children, that I honored myself, and that I dealt with it. I wrote very much, and I took time off work again, said, I need some time, I need to deal with this now, because otherwise it won't let me go. And that's what I did. And a year later, I fell pregnant again. And this pregnancy, it was before we moved to China. I was very excited because it felt different. And I was also further along. And I came to China. I was here by myself. My partner had to go on a business trip. And I remember going to work, and I was in the tube, and there was this seat for pregnant women. And I thought, ooh, in a couple of months, this is my seat. I will always have a seat here on the underground. Ooh, lucky me. And I was ecstatic because I thought I've never went so long. I was 9 weeks at the time. So this is it. This is now happening. And a week later, it was my partner's birthday. I baked a cake for him, and he came home. We celebrated. We went out for dinner. I went to the loo, and blood. And I was like, shit, it's happening again. And I came down, and I said to him, I'm bleeding. I need to go to the hospital. And we drove to the hospital 3 weeks after arriving in China, which was an event in itself, because we arrived at the hospital. There was one person who spoke English, and none of us, we didn't speak any Chinese at the time. So it was like, okay, let's try this. And I went to the loo, and I noticed something happening. And when I looked down, there was my baby in the toilet bowl, and I could see a leg sticking out. And oh my God. And I came out of the loo, and they took me to do a sonogram. And they said, oh, we can't find anything. Are you sure you're pregnant? I said, are you kidding me? Or what are you saying here? Said, yeah, we can't see anything. So are you sure you might just have imagined it, or you might just force pregnancy test? Seriously? And then they took the blood. Half an hour later, they came back, said, oh, yeah, you were pregnant, or you are pregnant. We can see it now. I said, what's wrong with you guys? And I got so annoyed about the whole situation that these strangers were there and telling me that I just imagined it. I was lying. And they wanted me to stay. And I said, no, I'm not staying. I'm going home. I want to be, even if it's the hotel that I lived in for 3 weeks, this is my home, and I don't want to stay here. And the doctor came and said to my partner, tell your wife to stay here. I got so angry, and I shouted at them and said, leave me alone. I'm going home. Doesn't matter. And I went home, and they gave me some pills so I could sleep. That was okay. But I woke up the next morning, and I had to go to work. Or I went to work because I was only working for 3 weeks. So I thought, this is probably not a good time to say, oh, I'm not coming for 2 weeks. So I went to work, and I didn't want to be alone. But just sitting there and knowing that I just lost my child. And the world was turning. I was in the underground. I saw this seed and just cried. And I started hating my body. I started to feel shame for my body. I was asking these questions, why me? What is wrong with me? Why isn't my body capable of doing this thing that billions of women easily could do? Some unwanted even. It's like, oh, here we go. And me, I can't. What is wrong with me? Why isn't this happening? Why is it happening to me? And over the time, the shame and the blame for my body for not being able to do that grew. And I fell in a hole. I spiraled down. There were moments when I woke up in the morning and I thought, what's the point in living? Why should I do this any further? I'm incapable. And I think what we do is we take it from this situation to the whole life, and the whole life becomes meaningless and not worth it anymore because this is happening. And as well as with my previous partner, I thought my partner, he doesn't cry, he doesn't care, he doesn't understand. And it took a toll on our relationship because I got so angry at him because he didn't show any emotion. He didn't talk to me about it. He didn't tell me how he felt. And I isolated myself, being in a foreign country, knowing nobody. And on the one hand, I wanted to go out and meet people. On the other hand, they were mothers. And I developed this hate towards any pregnant woman who came along. I looked at her and said, why you? Why not me? And I looked away. I couldn't look at them. When a woman with her baby walked past, I said, I hate you so much. You can do this, you have this, and I don't. And it made me angry. It just made my whole life very miserable. And eventually I met up with a colleague of mine and she said, how are you? And I was debating, should I tell her? Shouldn't I tell her? Should I just play along and show the world that I'm okay? But I thought I can't anymore. And so I told her the whole story and then we cried together, which was very, very relieving, and knowing that I can talk about it. It's good to talk about it. It doesn't change anything, but it's good to not keep it in and isolating myself and just being in my own bubble and knowing, having other people know that I'm in this dark hole. What you see now is probably not who I am usually or at good times, but this is me in my darkest hour. And it was good to see, to know that people were there for me, even who didn't know me in my happy hours, but they were there. So that gave me comfort. But it didn't change the fact that I just didn't want to go on. You know, it was a struggle every morning. And for half a year, I carried this anger, the desperation, the disappointment in myself with me. And at one point, I thought, I don't want to feel like that anymore. I want to be happy again. I want to laugh again. I want to feel calm again. And what changed for me was that I gave myself permission to cry whenever I felt this is what I want to do now, to laugh whenever I felt I wanted to laugh, and to know that, yes, it hurts now and it might hurt for the rest of my life. And that is okay. I don't need to push it away. I don't need to grieve and then it doesn't happen again and then it's gone. The permission to just, if this happens for the rest of my life, it's okay because it's my child, it's my children, and that is okay. And with that, that was the first step to also opening up to my partner to say, look, this is how I feel, this is what I've gone through, and I shut you out, I closed the door. Now I gave myself permission to not be alone anymore, to move forward. And I also met with expert women who have children, many children around, and it's like, do you have children? And I was like, what do I say? What do I say? Should I just say, no, I don't have children? is that me not honoring my children? Or should I say, I have 5 children, but they're not alive, they're not with us. That might feel them uncomfortable. So it was this, how do I deal with this now in the future? What do I say? And for me, I decided, for me, the best way forward is to just say, I don't have children who are with me, but I do have my 5 children. They're just not with me here in this world. And that to me is okay. And it's okay if other people feel uncomfortable with that or don't know how to react. It's okay for me. And that's the most important thing. And my partner also opened up. And I remember we went grocery shopping and there was this pile of diapers. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, this is what triggers me when I see this. This is what, when it comes up and when I feel the grief, when I feel the pain. And we talked about it there and then in the grocery store, about our babies that we lost. And now every year, because we light the candles for all 5 of them to just honor them. And we still, because for the last one, June would be the 24th of June would have been the birthday. And still, when we see a little girl, because he is convinced it would have been a girl, he says, look, this would be our girl. So it's still there and it's nice. It's very beautiful to share that. And what I did, what happened to me is I redefined what motherhood means to me. That was my big step out of the misery, if you want to say. When I said, what does motherhood mean to me? And for me, it meant that I want to show my love. I want to care. I want to teach. I want to share my values. I want to share what I know about life, about the world. And as I would done with my children, to help them grow up confident and brave and curious. I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what motherhood means to me. So how can I use that now without having my children here? How else can I be a mother? And that's when coaching came into play. Because I was a coach before, but I wasn't an intentional coach, if you want to say. But with that idea of motherhood, of sharing, of giving, of educating, of just supporting, it changed the values of how I wanted to show up in the world, who I wanted to help, and how I wanted to help.
Yeah. Wow. I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you from my heart to yours for being so vulnerable, for sharing so openly what is such a personal journey and one that has been, shrouded in a lot of silence and stigma and shame and loss and grief. And when you're going through anything, you want to talk to people about it, but when you feel like you can't and people don't understand, it just makes it 10 times harder. I also understand that journey of living in China as an expat, of feeling alone, of not having those connections of people around you. Of most of the people that you meet are other mothers and have their children running around. And that was when my sort of journey through secondary infertility started, was when I was living in China, and I felt very isolated because everybody else was having their second child, and I knew I should be grateful I'd already had one, but I still had this biological urge to complete my family. So there's so many layers to your story, of not receiving the compassion and the love and the support that you needed when you were at your most vulnerable. And also just acknowledging that this really does take a toll on relationships. You can have the most solid relationship, marriage, friendship with your partner, And all of a sudden, you are face to face with each other, dealing with the loss, the grief, the trauma in different ways. And it can really pull us apart. And so I think it's wonderful that you have found a way to come back together and to celebrate the lives of your beautiful children and to honor them and to honor their memories, knowing that they will always be in your heart. They will always be with you, and that you have turned your pain into a purpose, you know, through the work that you're doing now. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably. It is appreciated by me, and I know anybody who watches this conversation, listens to this conversation, will feel the same. So thank you.
Thank you.
And it's so real, isn't it? You know, the tears are still there. The feelings, it's something that it doesn't ever completely disappear. And I know that when I wrote my book and I shared it with women who were in their 60s, their 70s, who had had miscarriages or stillborn babies years and years and years ago, they still feel that pain. They still feel that loss, and it changes us. It changes who we are. But what I love that you're doing is that you are using that in a beautiful way to support other women and to change the way, as you said, that we perceive motherhood to be. There's so much wisdom in what you've shared. So thank you. I would love to, you already started talking about it, your coaching journey and the work that you're doing now. So I would love to sort of change tack a little bit and talk about how you moved into that coaching space and the work that you're doing now, so that people can get a feel for who you support and how they can connect with you. So yeah, if you're happy just to share a little bit about your coaching journey, how it began and where it's led you to, that would be really valuable.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. So I was always one, I didn't know what I want to be when I grow old. And so many people around me, like, I want to be that, I want to do that. So I felt like I don't know. And I always thought maybe I'll find it one day. It's probably I haven't met the one thing that I want to do yet. And it only happened when I was 31. I started a new job, and my manager at the time, he allowed me to work with the apprentices. And during this project, I realized how much I love to share my knowledge, to guide, to ask questions, and then they come up with amazing ideas. And I walked back into his office and I said, I know what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I don't know what it's called. I don't know how it looked like, but this is what I want to do. And at the time, I hadn't heard about coaching. It's 13 years ago now. So I thought, what could I do? And in my brain, the most obvious solution was to study psychology. So off I went and started psychology. But I noticed over the years that it's not the right thing. It's not taking me where I want to go. And then I discovered learning and development in the HR space. I thought, yeah, this sounds more like it. Let's do that. So I started going to our local university. I did my PGD in HR management with a focus on learning and development. And I loved training. I loved to do that, to be in front and share what I know and help others to understand themselves. And during that time, I also discovered NLP. And I was like, oh my God, this is answering so many questions that I had in the learning and development space. And now understanding NLP, understanding how our brain works, how the words work that we use, whole different ballgame. But there were more questions. okay, I will get an answer to those as well. And that's when it started. I did more and more, not qualifications, but courses to get answers to all of these questions that came up with the new knowledge that I had. But after the NLP training, after I got that certification, I walked around and said, guys, I am an NLP practitioner who wants to work with me for free. Whoever wants to, just come in. And that's where it started. Colleagues came to me, family members of my colleagues came to me, and I just did what I learned and tried to see how does it work? How do people react to it? And it was fascinating. It amazed me. And I knew that this is the right path for me. So eventually I left my job and started as an apprenticeship coach at the local college. And that's where I first came into contact with coaching. It's like, oh my God, what is this? And it was amazing. My students, I had 250 students from age 16 to 34, and guiding them, helping them to deal with being away from home for the first time, dealing with, yeah, I have to go to college, but I also have to go to work. How do I combine all of that? And what is with my love life? That was always a big question. And I just loved it. Sometimes I had sessions, 8 sessions, one after the other a day. And I felt so exhausted physically, but mentally, I was on clouds. I was like, I love this. This is it. However you call it, but this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to help people to discover themselves and accept themselves, to see what is the reason for me doing this and what could I do differently if I want a different outcome. So all these combinations. But then we moved to China, and here I couldn't work as a coach because of visa reasons. So I became an English teacher, which was okay, but it didn't fulfill me. And I said to my partner, I want to go back to coaching. And I didn't know how to do that. But first I said, I do a qualification because I want to understand what coaching means and what theories they are, methodologies, how you can use it, what is a good way to connect it with NLP and also psychology. And I did that. And then a couple of months later, someone said, oh, you could set up your own business. What? Can I? Really? As a foreigner here in China? And they said, yeah. I said, I'm doing this. I talked to my partner, of course, because that meant that I'm in total financial dependency of him, which was a first for me, and which a whole different ball game and struggle, probably for a different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was something. But I had my business, and I thought, okay, what do you do now? And when you read all these marketing experts, what they say is a niche down. And it's like, but I don't know. All I want is people to love themselves. So how do I niche down? What is it going to happen? And it was a journey to allow myself again to just be a coach, to just be there in that space, not giving it a name, but just be there and sharing my knowledge, giving my support and allowing people to come and be themselves. So without expectations, just come as you are. And eventually I had an epiphany, and something happened on a morning where I thought, well, all of these tools work so well. Why wouldn't they work in the bedroom? Why wouldn't they work the intimacy space, physical and emotional? Why wouldn't they work there? And why didn't I think about that? And they worked so well for me. So I decided that this is it. I want to be in that intimate space. I want to give women and men, of course, the space to share, but also to grow intimately. Because what I noticed over time, of course, in my relationship as well, that particularly when we went through the miscarriages to the grief, the physical intimacy, the sexual intimacy, that was gone. It was like, what's that? And with that also came the distance of the emotional intimacy, because I didn't share how I felt. I didn't share what I was thinking. So I distanced myself. And luckily for us, I turned around and went back to sharing, but many couples don't. So they just walk that path of getting more and more distant to each other. But in the end, all we want is love. All we want is to belong to someone and loving someone, being loved by someone. And that was for me, like, this is what I want to help with. I want to be open to talk about sexuality, whatever that means to each and everyone. I want to be open to talk about intimacy in general, about relationships. I want to share my tantrums, my dramas that I went through, how I grew from when I was 20 and a drama queen to now being almost 44 and being calmer, understanding more. But most of all, I wanted to help people accept themselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because often we think, no, that's not good. So if that would go away, everything would be good. But in the end, it's all interconnected. You wouldn't be passionate, maybe, at work if you wouldn't be passionate in a different part of your life about a hobby, for example. Oh, my partner is always with his hobby, but he's passionate there. Do you love his passion in the bedroom? Oh, yeah. But if you take the passion away for his hobby, the whole passion goes away. So you don't have that good anymore. So it's accepting all of it for yourself first helps you to then give it to others. And that's my mission, to help women accept who they are, unapologetically imperfect. And with that, sharing it with the world and reconnecting with a partner.
And that work is so needed. And I think the fact that you have lived through that experience is so important. And the relationship that you had with yourself and your body, and you talked about how you hated your body and it had failed you and all the shame around that, which is such a big part of women and men's journeys through infertility and fertility issues. There's no, I don't believe in coincidences in life. I just believe in synchronicity. But it's like everything that you've been through has led you to this point in your coaching journey to be able to share all your wisdom and your knowledge and your lived experience to help other people learn from what you've been through, and to hopefully support them and give them all the tools and the techniques and the insight and the wisdom that you didn't have when you were in the depths of your pain, to help them to stay connected to each other. And it's such a gift that you can do that for women and for couples and for men. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you work with women and couples, and the journey that you kind of take them on.
Yeah, so what I do when I work with couples, I love to work with them individually. And then every now and again, we come together, because I am a firm believer that it starts with you. It takes two to tango, but it only takes one to get up and ask or do something. So I love to work with individuals to bring them on their way, on their self-love or on their self-acceptance way. And I do that a lot here in China with the expats, because many relationships, for whatever reason, struggle with being isolated, having these half friends, like I call them, or however you want to call them. You build connections because you don't want to be alone, but you don't build this deep, intimate connections with someone. It's all on the surface, and many struggle. And the husband, usually it's the husband who goes to work 12 hours a day, comes home, and the connection just goes. And that's why I'm here to help these couples. But like I said, I work with both individually. And my program, the Intimacy Acceleration, that's mainly for women. So far, it's been so many women coming to me. And for whatever reason, it's body shame, but it's also fear of opening up. It's also having that need for control. There are so many different reasons why a relationship stops being connected and drifts apart. But for all of them, it started with them taking the first step to say, okay, my partner might not even want to come with or want to be part of it, but they don't. It's you. You can change what you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself, how you talk to yourself. And talking to yourself about yourself, that's a big thing that I work with my clients on, because I believe that it starts in your head. What you tell yourself, what you believe in, that's how you create your reality. And that doesn't mean that shit doesn't hit the fan or that stuff doesn't go wrong. Everything happens, life happens, but how you deal with it, how you look at it, how you face it, that starts in your head. And that's what makes the difference, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mindset is such, and the thoughts that we have are such a critical part of any journey we go on. But normally it takes a bit of a crisis before we do that deep dive inside our minds and trying to figure out what's going on. Because I know at times my mind's a bit crazy, and some of the things I say to myself, I have to stop myself and catch myself. But it's having that awareness in the first place that that's what we're doing. And just because we think something, it doesn't mean that that's true. And it doesn't mean that that's who we are. And then that obviously translates into our relationships and the expectations that we place on others and the unrealistic expectations that we place on other people. Can you share a little bit around expectations and unrealistic expectations in relationships and the work that you do with people in that space?
Well, I like to believe that any expectations is unrealistic, because it's what you think, and you think that the other people, the other person, society thinks the same. You either have that idea taken on from someone else, from other people, from society, and now you choose to believe that this is what is supposed to be. So you carry your expectations. And what's missing is the curiosity. But nevertheless, I think expectations in any way, don't have them. Then I think it's a waste of time, because usually they end in disappointment. On the other hand, if you move it to curiosity, so what, it's not, how to say this, an expectation doesn't mean that you let go of what you want and you ask for it or set your boundaries, etc. That doesn't, it's not the same. It doesn't exclude. An expectation is when you expect something from someone doing something the way you think it should be. But what you take away is for the other person to just be. And usually it comes because you think that you should be in a certain way. So you have your walls up. You have the fear of, if I'm myself, people might not like it. I might not like it. So I behave a certain way, like others expect it. And we take away from the other person to be themselves, to do it their way. It's, I like this, for example, my partner, when he puts the stuff in the dishwasher, he has his way. And I remember a time when I thought, you're doing it wrong. Because my expectation is he does it the way I do it.
Yes.
The dishes get clean anyway. It doesn't matter if he puts it differently in, or if he does it the way I think it should be in. The result is the same, but we often don't give this chance to someone else to say, okay, how would you do it? How is it that you feel comfortable doing it? What is your thought process behind it for doing it that way? So expectations, let go of them.
Yes, and I think there's been many an argument in many households around the world about dishwashers and how you load up the dishwasher, ironically. I remember going to a talk years ago. Cheryl Richardson was there, and she was talking about how she used to argue with her husband over, it was his job to load the dishwasher up, and she would sort of stand and watch him and say, oh, you don't do it like this, and you put it in, and he was like, okay, let's just see, I'm going to close the door, let's just see if these dishes actually get washed. And lo and behold, sure enough, they did. and she had to let that one go. But it is interesting, isn't it, that our own perception around things need to be a certain way, and if they're not done our way, then they're not right, quote unquote. But how do you support people to, if we don't talk about expectations, we talk about needs and wants, and how do you help people to communicate their needs and their boundaries in relationships?
Well, I think the first step is to understand what you actually want, because most of us, they can write a list on stuff that they don't want, but asking them, but what do you want? What is it that you really want? That's a tricky question. That's so hard. But that's the first step. When you know what you want and knowing all the details, because sometimes we are set on this is what I want. And when I ask them, so what if it's slightly different? Would that still be okay? Yeah, actually it would. So what it would be different in that way, would that still be okay? Yeah, actually it would. So knowing what you want and the range of what is it that I want in that perspective
Yeah.
is the first step. And when you know that, then you can communicate it to your partner. Because, for example, you can say, I want to spend more time with you. But what does that mean? Does it mean the weekends? Does it mean in the evenings? Does it mean just 1 hour a week? Who knows? But when you know what you want, that's, okay. And I had that with my partner. I said, I want to spend more time with you. And we had a fight about it. Like, I'm busy, da 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 da. And I realized, so what do I actually want? And I wanted every other week, I wanted to go on a date with him where we go for dinner, where we not dress up, but I said to him, you need to wear a different t-shirt. That's my expectation. That's my demand. That you need to have something freshly washed on. And then we go for dinner, and I want to spend these 2 hours just us, no one else, no mobiles, just us. That's what I want. That's what would make me happy. And he could agree to that because now he knew what I wanted. And he could say, yeah, I can manage that. I can put that in my schedule. I can manage to find the time. And now it's him who says, oh, next week is our dinner date, because we both agreed to this. And the thing is, if he would have said, could we do every 3 weeks? I go back and say, is every 3 weeks okay for me? Is it? Is it not? And then you have to be honest to yourself, not just to please or stop the argument, but just be honest. Is that enough for you? And for me, it wasn't. I'm like, no, I would love to have it every day, but can't do that. So every 2 weeks, that's my minimum. And he was fine with that. He arranged his schedule and he makes time for it. And he tells me now in advance, look, I have a business dinner I can't do. Can we do it on Saturday? Because we both now know what I need. So we come back to the love languages. Quality time is one of my love languages. So he knows that this is what I need to feel loved. For him, it's words of affirmation. So he feels loved when I tell him that I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you do. I appreciate how you support me. I appreciate you being honest to me. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. I appreciate you telling me off every now and again. But when you know that, when you know what you want and need, then you can communicate it easily to your partner.
As you've said throughout this conversation, it all starts with us, doesn't it? It starts with us understanding ourselves and therefore being able to communicate that to others. And that's a beautiful gift that we can give ourselves, regardless of what we're going through in life. If we can improve the connection and the relationship we have with ourselves, knowing that it's the most important one and the only one that's guaranteed, then we can show up as our best version for other people. And I love that you've got something tangible that you can actually work towards, because often when, I think in my experience, when conflict comes up in relationships, it's you have conversations around maybe behaviors or emotions, and you don't come out with an outcome of how can we actually demonstrate this? How can we show each other, rather than just talking about it and talking about what the problems are and the changes we're going to make? How can we actually physically show each other? How can we put that into practice? so that we're both getting what we need from each other and from the relationship, but always honoring ourselves and the needs that we have for ourselves. So thank you. And you've alluded to the 5 love languages, and I just would love for you to share, for those people who don't know what they are, I would love for you to share a little bit more about that, because mine are physical touch, I'm a real hugger, and words of affirmation, and also quality time. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the 5 love languages, the methodology behind it is that each of every single one of us has a certain way of feeling loved by other people. It's not particularly your romantic partner, but also from other people. And there are 5 of them. We have physical touch, we have quality time, we have gifts, we have words of affirmation, and we have acts of service. So like you said, physical touch is your primary one. And mine is quality time. For me, physical touch would come second. So we all have like a hierarchy of this is the one that really is strong for me. And it's important to be honest with yourself. And because sometimes people say, oh no, gifts don't mean anything to me. But let's be honest, I love a gift. I love it when my partner brings flowers home. I love it when he brings me something bigger home. Tomorrow's my birthday. I look forward to the present. So, okay.
Yay.
So be honest. It doesn't help anyone if you say, I should think this. And it reminds me of a story because I was doing a training on the 5 love languages here in China at one of the hospitals. And there was one Chinese lady, and they had the task to write down their love language. And then she read them. And I said, so this is how you feel loved? And she said, no, this is how Chinese people feel loved. That's okay, interesting. But what do you say? How would you classify them? How would you rate them? She said, differently. So let's try that. Let's try to find out what is your, because with that, you can go to your husband and tell them, look, I just discovered this. And I just realized gifts are my preferred love language. I love having gifts that makes me feel loved. And then again, we come to what do you want? What does it mean? A gift can be a picked flower. A gift can be jewelry. It can be anything that's just given to you because someone thought of you and says, here you go. On the other hand, what we also do is we assume that, because I assume that, oh, I love quality time. My partner loves quality time. No, he doesn't. For him, it comes third. So quality time says, I love being with you, but it's nothing that is as important to me as these words of affirmation. Because he has a different experience in his life. He went through a whole different part of challenges. Triggers are different. Everything is different in his brain. So me assuming that, oh, this is what I want, like, no, not what he wants. It might be, but you don't know until you ask. And I see that in many relationships that we just project from, this is what I want, this is how I feel, this is what I need. And I give it that to you. Why don't you take it? Why don't you give it back to me?
Mm.
And by having that conversation, what do I want? What do I need? What is it that you want and need? That's when we become clear, and that's when we can grow together again.
Yes, you've explained that beautifully. So thank you. So if anybody's listening and they haven't discovered what their love languages are, then you can Google it and find out, and it'd be fun to do it with those closest to you as well, because it's definitely, since I understood mine, it's definitely improved my relationships with others, and now I try to work out what they are for other people, and sometimes you can see, I've got a friend who, whenever she sees me, she gives me a gift, which is absolutely beautiful. That isn't my love language per se, but I know that she gets enjoyment from giving me a gift. So I know that it's come from her heart, and I appreciate that she's doing that for me. But she's probably thinking she doesn't give me many gifts because I like to show my love in different ways through words of affirmation and giving her a hug. And so it's just having that understanding of each other makes such a difference in all our relationships. So thank you. In terms of your intimacy acceleration program, is there anything else that you would like to share about that so that people can understand whether it would be a good fit for them?
So I think the most important part of that is because it's 6 months. And many people say, but I don't need 6 months. Hello. And that might be true. But on the other hand, how I would like to explain it is that when my clients come to me, yeah, there is a lot of chaos. There is a lot of firefighting. So the first 3 months is usually fighting the fires in the relationship, calming the nervous system down, calming the relationship down, getting you on the path. And then the next 3 months are for you, because now we don't need to firefight anymore. Now you're calmer. Now you see that this is working. There is a change. This is harmonious. And that gives us then time to maintain that status by working on your thought patterns, on you becoming comfortable and more secure in how to use the tools that I invite you, not invite you to, what's the word? Introduce you to.
Yep.
Yeah, and all of this, that the inner critic that comes up and tells you stuff that you recognize, and I quieten it now. And the last 3 months are really for the maintenance, so that you don't get back to the point where you've been when you came to me. And I think that's very important to know, that it's not just us sitting there and, oh, what shall we talk about today? Because there's always something that happened in your life. And then you might catch yourself that, why did I think that way? Why did I behave that way? What is the reason? And it's not to eliminate all of that behavior. It's more to understand it and being comfortable, accepting that, yeah, this is how I behaved. Do I want to behave like that in future in different situations? Yes, no, let's see. And if not, how would I like to behave? And what do I need to behave differently? So that's what we do the last 3 months, mainly.
Yeah, it's that lived experience, isn't it? Because we can have all the theory in the world given to us, but when it comes down to it, unless we actually put that into practice and then learn from our mistakes, because we will inevitably fall and stumble because we're having to change so many ways of being that have become that go-to for most of our lives. So to actually have you walking alongside them on that journey when they're really putting that stuff into practice and trying things and working out what works and what doesn't is really valuable. So I can definitely see that 6 months is needed, and maybe even longer.
Yes, it's whatever floats your boat, whatever you need. But you have to be honest to yourself. And being honest, is this how far I came? Because it's also sometimes we think we achieved our goal. My relationship is working, we're connected, we are happy again. I don't need help anymore. And that's human nature. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just like, this is how we work. We achieved our goal. Now we can yo-yo effect in dieting. That's a beautiful example.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
We let it slide and slip back into the old patterns because we haven't had the maintenance to just deal with different situations whenever they come up, and use the tools that we learned along the way.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And I believe that you have a beautiful gift for our audience, which I would love for you to share with them.
Yes, it's a complimentary consultation that I want to share with the listeners, the viewers. It's 60 minutes where we just go through what's going on in your relationship, a detailed insight into what's going on and what could you do to move forward and reconnect. So I will give you that blueprint after the 60 minutes, so you can go away and find whatever you need to find to work through that. And of course, you can work with me as well. That's probably the easiest way, I would say, but sometimes you're not ready to go that far or take that step. But nevertheless, I want to offer that consultation, the complimentary consultation, to work through it, give you that blueprint, and can do whatever you want with it.
Beautiful. That's a really generous offer. And I think what that opportunity provides for people is to see whether you're an energetic match for each other. And like you said, whether they're actually ready to do the work, because sometimes we think we are, but we're not. And so it's really important that as coaches, we can acknowledge that sometimes we do say no to people, and that's okay. Sometimes it's a postponement of the journey. It doesn't mean it's a never, but it means it's not right now, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it's always right now. How you feel, how you behave, what you think, what you do, it's always right now. That doesn't mean you're the same person or the same reaction will happen tomorrow or happened yesterday. Always right
Yes.
now.
Yeah. And how can people connect with you and reach out to you? Because I know you're on social media. What are your ways that people can connect with you online?
Well, today I would love to promote Inside Timer because I became a teacher at Inside Timer just 6 weeks
Congratulations.
ago.
That's
And on
exciting.
Sunday, yes, very exciting. And on Sunday, my first course, it's about overcoming body shame and boost your relationship. That became live, published on Sunday. And I'm going to do a couple of live shows in the next couple of weeks about body shame, about other topics concerning relationship and what you can do, how it goes, etc. So if someone is interested, Inside Timer is free to join. And is more to come from me because I said before, I love educating, I love giving trainings and explaining. So there's more to come, but this one is very dear to my heart because I also share my story that I shared with you today about the shame I had for my body and how some of the little steps I took to overcome that.
Which will be so incredibly valuable, because I know so many women that have body shame, so many women that don't like their bodies, let alone love their bodies. And for me, that was a changing point in my journey when I was lying in ICU, literally not knowing whether this was my last breath that I was going to take. I realized that I'd been so hard on myself and my body, and here I was expecting my body to bring another beautiful, healthy baby into the world when I was just so hateful towards my body. So my fertility journey ironically became such a gift to me in changing the relationship that I had with myself, changing the relationship that I had with my body, and looking at my body and with such awe and curiosity of look how it's healed, look at all the amazing things it does do, rather than focusing on all the things that it doesn't.
Yeah, it's an amazing machine. I love it.
Yes. And I feel like I'm just beginning in that journey. You know, there's so much more for me to understand about my body, so much more deep connection that I can do. It's that ever evolving journey. I think wherever we're at, it's ever evolving as we move through our lives as women. There's so many different stages that we go through. So yeah, so that's exciting. So congratulations on putting your work out into the world in that way. And I would love for you just to share, is there any last words of wisdom, anything else that you would like to share with the audience today?
Live, love, and laugh. Do it for yourself and no one else.
Beautiful. Very, very powerful words, and so very true. Anna, it has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to chat to you this morning. I have loved our conversation. I've loved getting to know you. I know this is just the beginning of our connection and our journey, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where your journey takes you next. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.